So Larry Goldberg, they put out a call yesterday. They're asking for really, really smart people who want to spend months or years, 80-hour weeks, and not get paid. I immediately thought of you. So are you putting in your application to join the DOGE team?
You know, the Doge team is a very exciting place to be right now. And it's going to get less and less exciting the more the work goes on, because it's awfully difficult to actually make that thing happen. If anybody can do it, I believe Elon and Vivek could do
Right.
it. I mean, between the two of them, they have an enormous amount of experience, but all their experience is in private enterprise. So does it translate to government work? And they will not have the power to do anything. They will have the power to recommend.
Right.
You rightfully pointed out that the Grace Commission did all of this work under Reagan, and I remembered it very well. In those days, I was quite aware of what was happening in the United States, even though at the beginning of the Reagan years, I wasn't in the United States. I actually immigrated into the United States in the beginning of his first term.
Mhm.
And of course, it was a very exciting time,
Very.
very exciting time.
I think I
Uh,
think I think we're back in those exciting times again.
yes, yes, we really are, because this is a huge sea change for the country.
Yes.
But the Grace Commission stumbled on the reality that so much of what they wanted to do had to go through Congress. Now, the truth is they have a lot more powerful that sorry, that the administration has a lot more a lot stronger relationship with this Congress than Reagan had with that Congress.
Right.
Reagan was dealing with Tip O'Neill, canny guy, who turned out to be quite a good partner, but nonetheless, he was a partner across the aisle.
Yes.
Yeah, Trump is bedeviled by a partner on the same side
Same
of the
side.
no greater enemy than your own friend, so in politics. So it's going to be interesting. But they have a huge problem on their hands, and this is why I'm really concerned, and I can show you the problem actually if you want
Sure,
to.
absolutely. Throw it up and let's see what the problem is.
Yeah, so let me share my screen if I
Yep,
can get this sharing thing done. Why is my share? Did you
I
disable
did.
sharing?
I did. I gave you sharing. I'll double check. It says multiple participants. Yeah,
There's I can share. Yeah, I
there
can
you
share.
go.
So let me show just how difficult this may be. Can you see my screen?
I can see it.
So if you look at the screen here, what I've done is I've graphed out the next 10 years.
Okay.
I've included 2003. So these are the years 2003 to 2034.
Okay.
2023 is the last year for which we have numbers. 2024 is not the books are not really closed. These numbers are pretty close.
Okay.
24 through 34 is from the Congressional Budget Office, CBO's numbers.
All right.
It's the office in the Congress that's supposed to be independent of party, and to an extent is. I have to say, though, they tend to err on the side of the left and on the side of the right, and
Yes.
that's just the reality. But if we look at the numbers, let me explain to you how I've got it set up. This very light red at the bottom is interest on the debt.
Okay.
There is nothing to be done about that.
Other than reduce the debt or reduce the interest rates. Yeah.
Well, the interest rates are not, unfortunately, within the power of DOGE.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but both of those things, to the extent that DOGE is successful, it might actually result in less debt, and also the interest rates might
Well,
come.
we'll get to the
Okay, all right.
resulting in the less. So we'll
Okay.
get to that.
Okay.
The next is Social Security entitlements. You see these numbers here, this bar here? This bar takes us from zero to about $500 billion. These are trillions, by the way.
Okay.
These little numbers.
Right.
They represent trillions of
Got it.
dollars. Because this is still a work in progress, so it's kind of a little spare. So this next darker red represents Social Security entitlements.
Right.
So Social Security is supposed to be a trust fund, but the honest truth is it's really just an expense. And the trust fund is just a legalistic pretense.
Right.
So this is the Social Security entitlements. And the point about these two numbers, no, actually, there's a third number, and that's this number here. That's this red here. And this red here goes up to another trillion. So roughly $500 billion, 1 1/3 trillion, and another trillion. So before you're done, you're a little bit over 3 trillion. And this darker red here is healthcare entitlements, which I will tell you went up significantly after Obamacare.
Right.
And is, constantly increasing. So these three bars here, these three rows here, are the total of all the entitlement expenditures. In other words, out of DOGE's hands.
Right.
In a way, I mean, DOGE could recommend a change in, say, the retirement age.
Right.
They could recommend a change in the healthcare structure. But nonetheless, it's going to be awfully difficult to do in reality. And it starts at a third of 3.3 trillion. Million, billion, trillion. Very easy to say, right? 3.3 billion and rises trillion by 2034 to all of $5 trillion by 2034.
Okay, got it.
So this is kind of out of DOGE's remit. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the area that DOGE is really responsible for. And so these heavy red lines here are defense expenditures.
Right.
And defense expenditures are estimated at about $0.8 trillion in that range.
Okay.
People say, well, defense is about $1 trillion. And really, some of the entitlements here belong to defense because you have the service, retirement. Retirement, and you also have healthcare expenses. So depends on how you cut it. But actually funding the army, the standing army, and funding the production of armaments and the development of armaments is about $800 billion.
Okay.
About 0.8 trillion. And then this number here, from here to here, is really the number that DOGE has at their behest.
Okay.
They could definitely cut down the cost of manufacturing arms because it's an incredibly wasteful operation.
Right.
But having said that it's incredibly wasteful, just understand that it's incredibly difficult to make an impact on that area. But nonetheless, it's definitely this area here and this area here, totaling from about 3.2 trillion all the way up to 6.3 trillion is available for DOGE to tackle.
Okay.
So what we're really talking about is about 3-point-something trillion dollars.
Okay.
The chances of saving 2 trillion out of that let's call it 3.5 trillion.
Right.
you're not going to save 60% of the government's expenditures.
Mhm.
You're not. You're not going to halve the total expenditure of the federal government, because so much of what the federal government actually does, so much of what it actually does can't be undone.
Right.
So, but obviously, you can cut a huge amount, but 2 trillion seems to me a reach, just given these numbers.
So Larry, I asked the question the other day on X. I said, if we shoot for 2 trillion and we only reduce the budget by 1 trillion, will that be a failure?
I mean, if we could reduce expenses by $1 trillion, what's interesting is that it really does change a lot of things. Firstly, it's going to bring interest costs down significantly over time in 2 ways. The pressure on interest rates will drop.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure on inflation will drop.
Right.
And in turn reduce again the pressure on interest rates.
Right. And there will be less, and there'll be less that you need to collect interest on. The total amount of outstanding debt would be less.
Be a huge look. My sense is, if they could find $500 billion, if they could actually do $500 billion, that would be the biggest win possible, and biggest win ever. I mean, it would be fantastic.
Yeah.
$1 trillion, I think, is a little, it may be a little bit, too ambitious.
And some people have also said it might be 300 billion this year, 700 billion next year.
Highly unlikely to be 300 billion this year.
I mean, I meant 2025.
Yes, 2025 will be the first amount.
So it might be one number in 2025, and then a bigger number in 2026, and a bigger number in 2027, as these different things have a chance to actually take place and start to show up.
Yeah, but the last budget that Trump will have at his, under his power will be 2027.
Right.
Because, sorry, 2028.
2028, right.
Yeah, 2028. Because, he'll only take power in 2024. Impact will be 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2028.
Right.
The only thing is that right now they're running way behind, so they have to pass some sort of resolution to keep the money flowing for next year, sometime in December. And they're getting awfully tight there. Typically, before a new president comes in, before a new Congress comes in, they find a little bit easier to pass.
Right.
Anyway, bottom line is, this is the deficit that the CBO sees looming between now and 2034. And you'll see in 2034, they're projecting a $3 trillion deficit.
Right. Right.
Interest rates running over $1 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah.
On a government revenue of 5.9 trillion. In other words, 50% of government revenues will be going to pay interest alone on the debt.
Yeah.
And our deficit, will be running at, just this gigantic $3 trillion.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, Larry. So I really love this work. I watched your whole long video and saw the details of it. People should go back and take a look at that. At the end, in fact, I'll put the card up so people can go back and check that out. So now, in order to get this through, you need to have not only the DOGE Commission, but you also need to have an administration that's solid and outstanding. So we've got, I don't know, at least a dozen appointments that are already in place.
Yeah.
A lot of them are very controversial, apparently. I don't know. I know some of these names. I've paid attention to some of their track. Some of the other ones I barely, recognize their names. They're kind of new to me. In general, How have you felt about the choices that have come up so far?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the choices. A lot of people are critical of them, even in my own family. Um, I, so let's deal with some of the more, controversial.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, there's Kennedy.
Right.
Now, a lot of people are negative about Kennedy because they assume, this issue about the vaccines are, the biggest. And I have to say that I've listened to him quite carefully now at first the All In podcast. I also thought he was crazy. By the way, I used to think he was crazy because, that's all I read about him.
Right.
This crazy guy, and they have these quotes completely taken out of context and so on and so forth. And I heard him, on the All In.
Mhm.
I was quite impressed, not sufficiently impressed to actually follow him, but when he made his speech withdrawing his nomination from those states he could and asking people not to vote for him in those states which he could not withdraw from, he made a speech that really got my attention. I listened to the whole of it, and I recommend everybody look it up and listen to it.
Sure.
Because it was a masterful telling of the tale of his life, what he stood for,
right,
and why he stood for it.
Right.
And you don't have to agree with everything he said, but I have to say that nothing he said about vaccines sounded to me like out there. I mean, what he was saying is that he doesn't think the mRNA vaccines have been sufficiently well researched. And he may be right. I mean, they were manufactured, in a time scale that was, very, very compressed. I mean, compressed to a degree that we would never have thought possible. Now, I thought it was fantastic that
I did too.
to do that, but he raises some really, really major doubts. I don't know that he's right or wrong, but I think it's fair to test them. He talks about the other vaccine, the classic vaccines from our youth and moving on with a high degree of acceptance. In fact, I think he said that he himself is vaccinated, other than the mRNA, the COVID vaccines.
Sure.
And that his children are all vaccinated. That's what I heard. I also heard that he had some doubts about some vaccines that, use some metals.
Mercury?
That he had some
Mercury is
doubts.
the one that's,
Pardon?
people always talk about mercury, but I don't know if there's other metals that are, because mercury has pretty well been eliminated or reduced in all vaccines at this point.
All I know is that he did not sound any alarms that I heard around the whole question of vaccinations. But he raised some very clear health issues that plague the American people.
Sure.
He didn't claim knowledge as to why they occurred, but he demanded action to discover what they were. And he put a lot of responsibility on the heads of the health
industrial complex. Yeah.
Why? Because it's happened under their watch.
Yeah.
He's posited some ideas, but I mean, there's no doubt the American people, many of us, are extremely unhealthy. Our children are extremely unhealthy.
Yeah. Now, I listened also to his speech. I listened to him on All In. I listened to him on Lex Friedman. I've listened to him multiple times, even though it's hard to listen to him because of that voice. But I've listened right to the end. And, as you point out, I think he's quite intelligent. I think he's quite knowledgeable. But one of the things he has that I think is important is just passion. And his passion is greater than he's kind of got the passion of an Elon Musk or a Donald Trump, where he's an old man now, like you and me, but he's willing to work crazy hours. He doesn't care about money. He's only looking at what can he make as a contribution in these last 10 years of his life. I think that's probably you. I know that's me. I could be, sitting with my feet up in Hawaii. There's no question about that. My Social Security alone is enough to keep me, in a little grass shack. But that's
As
not
long
what
as
I'm
they
going to
keep
do.
paying.
I say what?
As long as they can afford to keep paying it.
If they can afford to keep paying. So, but anyway, it's having the passion, having the desire to keep on keeping on, and he has that in spades. And so for that alone, I would love to give him a chance to see if he can get in there and start interfering with this, what do you call it, revolving door that takes place between pharmaceutical companies and the government to take care of some of the probable graft and corruption that's taking place,
Right.
et cetera. Yep.
The graft and corruption, I don't know that it's graft and corruption. I think it's a sick system.
Well, I think so too.
And I think every one of the people within the system are victims of that system because it evolved the way the tobacco industry evolved. It evolved because everybody was doing whatever they thought was right for their particular situation. And they thought they were acting in the right,
For the most part.
I mean, he's not as charitable as I am. But he has a passion for this, and I think he's right. I think we are due for a major reform.
Yeah.
Now, part of it is, just our American indulgent ways.
Yes.
Part of it is the healthcare system has got out of control.
Yes.
And out of control in many ways. I mean, the hospital system in this country. So I think that it's not only the healthcare, it's not only the pharmaceutical industry. I think a lot has to do with the healthcare services.
Sure.
And the corruption, not the corruption, I think the poor systems of national insurance we have, this Obamacare. And Obamacare is not the specific problem.
Yeah.
The problem is the foundations upon which it sat.
Well, we've also, ended up having hospitals and doctors' offices as factories now.
This is very important.
Yeah.
Hospitals can no longer be owned by doctors.
Yeah. Doctors' offices can't be owned by doctors. Doctors can't afford to have their own practices anymore.
And doctors have become, so there are a whole lot of things wrong about it.
Right.
Now, whether he's going to tackle all of that, I don't know that, I don't know that it's within his remit.
Right.
To me, that's a major issue. And
right.
So I think that there's a lot to be done. And look, the reason I support him is because he did a hell of a job in Hudson Valley.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That river.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That river system.
Yeah.
Was sick.
Yeah.
And I won't say single-handedly, but he was a very important agent in solving that problem. And the Hudson River today is an amazing, amazing piece of preservation for the United States in general.
It is. Yeah, it is.
And so, I have to say that from being really, really, really negative about him, I've really turned the corner, and I hope he proves to be a good administrator. I think it's very difficult to be a good administrator in this government, given the size of the bureaucracy. So I'm interested to see how he does.
All right. Well, we're going to run out of time if we go down the list any further, Larry, and I'd like to talk about some Tesla stuff before we end today. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is wondering how fast Tesla can ramp their newest product. They have put out an Optimus toy for $40. It's $15 more than my toy.
And their service crashed.
The servers crashed. So I hope they're making millions of these because they are going to sell a ton of them. Oh my
Yeah, that'll goose the financials for the fourth quarter.
I can't imagine how many they can sell. This could be a what do you call it? What was the doll years ago that people were standing in line and killing people to
Yeah, what did they call those things? I remember them. Yeah,
or that rock. What was it called? So I can't even imagine how many of these they'd sell if they actually have ramped up enough numbers to make it fun. But anyway, I had to bring that up. Let's see. There's also the question of the IRA tax credit, which is the big talk for the last 3 days. That's all everybody's talking about on X. So Larry, in 10 minutes or less, how do you see the IRA tax thing? And it's not so much a matter of does it have an impact on Tesla's numbers? It'll have some impact one way or the other. I'm more interested in how do you see this playing out in Congress, in the administration? What do you think Elon might really want to get out of, or how do you think he might like to formulate the new bill? And how long will it take? I've put it up that I think it'll be January before they could have anything changed.
Look, it's not up
Next
to
January.
It's not up to Elon. He won't have a hand in this. Because it's too dangerous for him to have a hand in it.
Oh, I see.
Not that would deter him.
Right.
But this is a congressional issue, and it will have to be tackled by the secretaries of transport, the secretaries of finance, secretary of commerce. They are the people who will have to handle this. It's a Trump thing. Trump has decided he's going to end it.
Right.
So in order to end it, he needs two things. The first is the people who administer it, and then the law itself. I don't think you can change I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm certainly not a constitutional lawyer. I know nothing about how it's implemented. My sense is it has to be changed in Congress.
Right.
They have to modify the law.
Right.
The modification of the law is very complicated because the law is very complicated. The departments in enacting it, responsible for it, the IRS, that is to say Treasury, the Department of Transport, the Department of Commerce, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Those guys each had their oar in. They had to build all the regulations around it. They had to promulgate those regulations. Now they're going to have to withdraw those regulations, and they're going to need Congress as well because Congress has mandated them to do this.
Right.
So somebody far cleverer than I is going to have to do all of this stuff. And so it's going to take a year or two of negotiations to make it happen.
Yeah,
everybody's thinking that, it's going to be ending on January 20th. No, it's not going to end January.
I put it down as next January, and that would be if everything goes well. But there's certainly going to be lobbying from the big three. There's going to be lobbying from the startups, the Rivians and the Lucents of the world. There's going to be lobbying from all kinds of folks that don't want to be left out on this thing. So who knows how it eventually
looks. There's going to be a huge political bun fight because there are members of Congress who, on both sides of the aisle, who want this bill to be retained.
Yep.
So, and the question is, how? Trump has come out and said this, but the question is, how committed is he to it?
Right.
And how much is he prepared? How much goodwill? How much political,
capital?
Capital is he prepared to spend on this thing? Right. So, I think the chances that it gets cancelled are relatively low. Probably better than 50-50 that they keep it and probably better than 50/50 goes way past, the January of the following of
Right.
26.
Right. Right.
Now, what's my opinion on it? I think it should be canceled. I don't think it should ever have been passed.
The tax portion, what do you think about the battery portion? I have this feeling that we need to make sure that we are taking care of
I don't think he talked
strategic
about the
problems.
battery portion, did he?
Well, he hasn't, I don't think anybody's ever said anything about the battery portion, but
Yeah, I don't think he raised that issue.
okay, so you think the battery portion stays regardless?
Yeah, because it's a tariff. It plays into his strong suit. It's exactly what he wants to happen.
Right.
He's going to impose many of those rules.
Okay, all right. I have a big question. Larry, I'm sure you remember when the new Model 3 came out, I was like, oh my gosh. I was both thrilled because it's such a phenomenal car, but I was also nervous because I thought it was going to just cannibalize the Model Y like crazy. I think I was right on the second part, but I wasn't right on the first part. And the first part now, we've had all these reviews all year long. People just one after another reviewing it with just amazing praise. And then today or actually yesterday and today, we get two new reviews. One from the Haggerty channel with Jason Cammisa, and the other one from Road and Track. Both, Jason said that he thinks it's the best car there is in totally. I mean, just the best, period.
Well, a couple of points on that issue. Firstly, you must understand that not many sedans are sold at all today.
It's more than you think, Larry. When you see, it's not many American car company sedans, but
No,
Brian White,
not many sedans.
but Brian White points out there's a lot of Hondas, a lot of Hyundais that are sedans. It's not he did.
I went with my granddaughter the other day to a Toyota dealer to buy her a second-hand car hybrid. She couldn't buy she wanted to buy a Tesla. She couldn't buy a Tesla because they can't charge the car in the apartment she's in, and and it would be hard for her to actually get to a charger in a regular basis. And it's not a good deal to buy an electric car when you have to just do a charger. So that's one of the issues. Anyway, here we went to this Toyota dealer, and she ended up buying a second-hand Toyota hybrid.
Mhm.
That was what she could fit into her budget. She's all of 23.
Yes.
and she's at school. I took a look at the lot, and I spoke to the finance guy. They sell a handful of sedans. All those cars were SUVs. Every car in the lot. I saw four Toyota Corollas next to each other in a sea of 100 cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you're right. I think the number of sedans sold are a small fraction of the total number of SUVs.
Yeah, I'll have to have Brian bring those numbers back up again. Now that's in the United States. In Europe, I think sedans do way better. They don't sell pickups.
No. They're all one way or another. I mean, there are sedans.
Mm-hmm.
I drove a Model 3 all around Europe.
Right.
But everywhere I drove, I saw one thing and one thing only: SUVs.
SUVs, okay.
In different ways, shapes, and forms.
Right.
Some, hatchback,
yes.
And so on. But I think that the sedans are in the range of about 1 in 3. Look, the BMW model range has changed its character almost entirely. And this is a car that, they made their name on very fast sedans.
Sure.
I'm not sure you're right.
Well, we'll have to look that one up. So you think the problem is not necessarily that the Model 3 hasn't done that well in terms of market share. You think it's just the TAM is not enough to generate that many numbers.
The thing about it is that the Model Y is such an attractive car compared in terms of value
Hmm.
received compared to the Model 3. I have a Model I. My wife has a Model 3.
Right.
She would prefer a Model Y
Oh, really? Okay.
because she hauls around all paintings to deliver to like the galleries and stuff like that. And I mean, the Model 3 actually is quite amazing. You put those seats down, you got a lot of space. I mean, it's terrific. But there are times when she needs that Y.
Yeah. I've been driving sports sedans my whole life, and if I bought a car today, it would be the Model 3. Hands down. Not a question.
I'm aligned with you. I mean, I love I love the Model 3. I love the Model 3. And we're about to change her Model 3.
Yeah.
Update her Model
Sure.
3.
Sure.
Not because there's anything wrong with that car, but I'd love to get my hands on a brand new Model 3.
The new Juniper should pick up on all of the benefits of that Model 3 that I've been talking about for a year, that I was sad that the Model Y doesn't have already.
Yeah.
So then these same magazines should be, turning back around and saying, well, now the Model Y is the best car in the world. So we should.
Look, what did I miss when I gave up my BMWs and my Ferraris and my, fancy cars? What did I miss? I missed the elegance, not the knobs, but the
Yes.
elegance of the finish of some of the finishes.
Sure.
I missed some of the silence of the road. The Model 3, the old Model 3, and I have the second generation. Not,
Yeah.
I'm waiting to buy the third generation, but I had the first generation. I had that. I changed it for the second generation because there was big improvement in road noise. There needs to be more improvement in road noise, which I believe the new Model 3 has. I haven't driven one yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand where Brian's going, but I don't think that's right. I think the sedan, I mean, there's a reason why the US manufacturers stopped building sedans. Not only did the Japanese outbuild them and improve upon them, but the demand is very low.
Okay. Well, we know, of course, that SUVs are the number one, and the pickup trucks are, a huge percentage of the overall business in the United States. I'm not questioning that. The question was only, if the TAM is, 4 million a year sedans, or is it 3 million a year sedans? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's only 2 million a year. I just don't know out of the 18 million that we build in the United States. And same question in Europe, or same question in China. I thought the sedans might be,
Well, I'll do the research and
Yeah.
see if Brian's right. I mean, Brian, I assume, has done his research, but I'd like to see the numbers myself.
Sure. Well, Larry, so the market seemed to get that maybe the IRA tax credit problem was not as big a problem as they thought it was yesterday, because Tesla did come back $9.54 during regular time, and it's down a half a buck in the after hours. Or do you think there's other reasons? Well, you don't usually have very much concern
I
about
didn't
it.
even know it came back. I didn't know it went down, actually, to be honest.
But in the meantime, what really was interesting today was that the Dow dropped 305. The NASDAQ dropped.
Interest rates are continuing to climb.
Yeah, NASDAQ down 427, and the S&P down 78. Of course, Powell said yesterday, well, market's
Maybe
pretty
not.
good, so, maybe we don't have to cut so much. I'm pretty sure most of this drop today had to do with Powell's little soundbite.
Undoubtedly. Because that I heard, and it came with a thud.
It came with a thud. So do you think, I continue to think maybe we'll get this quarter, but in December, but maybe there'll be a pause in the next one, or maybe the next two.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't understand why Powell wouldn't want to resign and let this president choose the guy he wants. I don't know why he wouldn't. He said he's going to serve out his term. What is the upside for him?
Yeah, no kidding. It's not a job that anybody, it's not like everybody's singing his praises. He gets a lot of flack all the time. So if you wanted Larry to be in something that was a little more volatile though than Tesla, this would have been a good day to
A
be
little bit more volatile than this.
this would have been a good day to be in Bitcoin.
Oh, what did Bitcoin do today?
Well, it started off the day around 87,000. It went
Oh,
up to 90. It went back down to 87,000. And then it finished the day at 91.9, almost, oh no, 91.3. So
I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin.
okay, all right.
I think this president is the right medicine for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's shown a lot of strength in the face of a lot of things. Um, I I I'm quite bullish on it now.
All right. And in the meantime, oil dropped again and is probably headed to in the 50s, right? I mean, that's what we
I
was.
mean, this president-elect, he's so much brighter than the idiots that came before him. It's incredible. He plays the market like a musical instrument. When when he was elected into office in 2016, the market went north.
Yeah. Yes.
I said it would happen again, and it was like,
Yeah.
and even in the face of macro, look, there's a reason he got voted in this time, and the reason is his presidency as a whole, end to end, was successful.
Successful. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the bottom line. And Biden's presidency has been one big disappointment after another.
So today, though, he says he made a deal with Taiwan Semiconductor, going to build 2 more plants, a total of 3. They got the one, I guess it's almost finished, and all in Arizona, I think. Is that what it was? All in Arizona? Anyway, I put up a post and I said, you go, Biden. That might be your legacy right there. Bringing the chip business to the United States just might be the thing you're remembered for here at the last moment of your time.
But remember one thing.
Yeah.
It was Trump that changed the dynamic on China in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you go back to 2015 and you look at the chatter, there was never any question about how we trade with China.
Right.
And the WTO is in vogue.
Yes.
And, okay, China's not following the laws. We'll go through the process. We'll fix it. And let's not upset China, blah, blah, blah. And it was Trump that came and said, China, you're done.
Yeah.
And we're going to raise tariffs.
Yeah.
And everybody screamed and cried. And he turned NAFTA upside down and renegotiated NAFTA. He completely changed the conversation. And after he left office, the conversation never went back again.
Right.
So, give the devil his due.
Oh no, you know me, Larry. I'm an all-in Trumper. I wasn't in 2016. I voted for him, but I wasn't all in. But boy, by the time he was done with his term in office, I could see. I mean, you say he's smarter than these other presidents. I don't have any question about him being smarter than them, just from a pure IQ standpoint. It may not come out in the way that he articulates himself, but it comes out in his understanding, his knowledge of world markets, his knowledge of financial markets. These things that he had to know. He had to know these things in order to open up hotels and golf courses all over the world. You don't.
Well, I was a never Trumper.
Yep.
I was bitterly opposed to him in 2016. I refused to vote for Hillary because I regard her as very corrupt. And in fact, I was right. I mean,
yeah.
The whole Russia thing was all, fraud and criminal machinations. And she's never been charged.
No.
for that document, and the Department of Justice, the Department of Justice suborned their own leaders to pursue that, and
Yes.
the FBI, lied. So don't get me started. I'm really angry at the institutions that failed so badly, and they didn't have to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And this AG, this outgoing AG, just allowed that to continue. Yes. I mean, he was going to be a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
How could this man have been allowed to be a Supreme Court justice when he allowed what went on in his main justice right under his nose? Anyway, let me get off this because people will start shooting at me. I don't need it in my old age,
Well, I figured out, Larry, that if Stephen Mark Ryan can be as political as he is, and if Farzad can be as political as he is, and if Dylan can be as political as he is, I think we can be political on this channel. I don't think
but my family will fire me.
They will fire you. Fortunately, my family is 100% be 100% now. I had 2 family members that were straying a little bit. They're 100% back in the fold. So
no, I think that we're a mixed bag, and I think that for the most part the family is opposed to Trump.
Yeah,
because I was, I just didn't like the persona. I didn't like.
Oh, I hear you. I know the story. So, Larry, behind you is a scene that you are totally enamored with, and I am too. And I understand that you're maybe going to be hitting the road here soon.
I'm hitting the road. I'm actually in South Carolina right now on the road.
Okay.
I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning, South Carolina, for Boca Chica.
Okay.
I hope to get to Boca Chica by Sunday afternoon because I want to go onto the launch pad. I want to see the ship. I want to see what you see before you.
Yes.
There's a picture taken IP3.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean,
the launch is supposed to be on.
The launch is on Monday evening. It's 7 o'clock, I think.
Okay, all right.
No, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, in the afternoon, I don't know that they'll let us onto Starbase in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I want to get there in the evening so I can still get onto Starbase before the launch. It's lovely to be there before the launch because you can walk almost right up to the rocket. It's incredible.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Larry, have you invested in any lenses? I mean, so far the videos you've been taking are, they're just at regular magnification. Couldn't we get some close-ups?
Listen, I don't do any photography during the launch. I learned that if you focus on the photography, you're not going to get great pictures.
Yeah.
But you're going to miss the whole deal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and the photographs that SpaceX take are fantastic.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, hey, give me a couple of minutes on this. What's her face? The president of or the CEO, whatever her title is, down at SpaceX. The head.
The CEO of SpaceX
or the president. I forget which title she has.
Yes. Names.
Anyway.
So slipped my mind too.
I know. So she said today that while Starlink will be profitable this year, that division, she expects Starship to surpass Starlink.
Oh yeah,
in profits.
No doubt about it. Yeah, because the capacity for launch is just incredible.
So there must be a lot of business already lined up. They must know that they've got these contracts already if she's going to make that statement.
Randy.
Yeah.
Falcon, the Starship can launch literally 5 times the current Starship, and it's going to get bigger.
Right.
5 times the capacity of Falcon.
Right.
Falcon's already doing, I don't know, 20 times what any other launch company is doing.
Right.
This is going to do, 100 times. I mean, this is going to change. It's going to change the whole calculus of space. You can now build factories up in space.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, we don't hear much about that side of it. In other words, you're talking about science, you're talking about, potential, I guess, manufacturing, as you're just pointing out. But maybe you hear more about this in the circles that you're traveling in. But in terms of the number of projects that are available once the cost comes down, we can understand from, first principles and from Econ 1A that if the price goes down, probably the TAM goes up. But in terms of what that is, or in terms of how much of that business SpaceX has, well, they have all of it. But I mean, how much of it exists?
It's very easy. Before Falcon existed, how many launches a year were there?
Almost none. I mean, it's hardly any launches.
A handful. I mean, you could count them on
Yeah.
two hands, the number of launches, one hand, the number of launches from the US.
Right.
Russia launched 20 or so a year.
Right.
China was beginning to launch something. They'll have launched 100. They've launched already 120, 130 launches this year in Falcon alone.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So the TAM is going to explode.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I would have never had thought that the Starship would be making more money than Starlink. Again, I'll go back to the other Brian Wong, who has put together charts showing that Starlink, he thought could be bigger than any of the other companies, actually, maybe except Optimus, that it would the potential for communication through both your handset and your laptop, that the numbers are just extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me the other day whether I thought the Starlink would actually start competing with ground-based with common carriers.
Yeah.
And my answer was a little bit more complex than Brian's. I said, I don't think it's going to compete, certainly in the next 20 years, 10 to 20 years, 2 to 3 decades, with common carriers in metropolitan areas. But I think it's going to completely
Dominate.
Possess the common carriers of their business outside of very concentrated metropolitan areas.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little, it's a little nuanced.
You'd be looking at 1 billion customers.
Oh, I think more than 1 billion customers.
That doesn't count the B2B. That doesn't count the ships.
Look, there are 9 billion. There are 9 billion people. You can count the mobile market to be, give or take, 4 billion, 5 billion people.
So there's
of those 5 billion people, at least a third and as much as 2/3 could live in rural areas.
I see. Yeah.
So you're talking about a 2 to 3 to 4 billion population that you're marketing to. Now, there's not going to be one company.
Yeah.
But it's going to be awfully difficult to compete with Starlink.
No kidding.
Awfully difficult.
No kidding.
Why? Because of Starship.
Of course. Yeah, Larry. Okay. Well, this has been fascinating. We won't tell anybody that I had to put this one together in 15 minutes, but I think it worked out just fine. So,
Yeah.
So, Larry, have a great drive over to South Texas. I guess Monday afternoon you might be on the road, but we'll check in and make sure that we can figure out maybe some way to get you on Monday before that liftoff.
Well, late in the evening on Monday, East Coast time would be perfect, probably.
Okay. All right. Okay, Larry. Great talking to you, and to all of you out there, of course, it's been great talking to you as well.